It's not the sexiest of subjects, but this week I want to talk about soil and feeding the soil. And trust me, from experience, people tend to glaze over the minute you start talking about the soil. But if you get it right, and you work with what your plants are growing in, then the results can be absolutely fantastic. Now, depending on where you live, your soil will vary enormously in terms of the depth, but there are some basic rules that we can apply to every situation. And one of the best things that you can do with soil is feed it. And when I say feed the soil, what I mean is by adding something we call organic matter. Now, organic matter is a broad term for a material that sort of essentially adds structure to the soil by adding matter, if you like. And when that matter breaks down, the soil organisms that are doing that release nutrients into the soil, and nutrients is food. So plants need nutrients the same way that we do. So adding organic matter is absolutely critical from that point of view, but also it improves the structure and holds moisture in the soil for when the conditions become dry. So option one for the organic matter is using your own homemade compost. Now, making your own homemade compost is very straightforward, provided you get some basic rules correct. And in future videos, that's something I'm going to be looking at in more detail. But homemade compost, the beauty of it, of course, is that you're recycling all your own waste from the garden. And the compost I have here is based on the material that we cut back last season. So you've always got this constant supply coming through the system, and I can never make enough of the stuff. Now, if there's one area of the garden where we use our own homemade compost the most, then it has to be the vegetable garden. Every autumn we add barrow loads of the stuff, and you know it's being used because come the spring, it's broken down, it's disappeared, and it's been drawn down into the soil by all the earthworms. It really is such valuable stuff. And as it's broken down, all that goodness eventually goes back into the plants you're growing. Now, our second source of organic matter comes from our manure heap. Now, manure heaps are absolutely superb, provided you can get hold of the stuff. The key when you're sourcing manure, if you can get some, is that it's old, because the last thing you want to do is put fresh manure on your beds and borders. All that does is do more harm than good. So provided it's at least 12 months old and ideally hasn't had a colony of nettles growing on it, then it is absolutely superb. It holds the moisture well, and as it breaks down, it releases those nutrients. And if you have a heap big enough, you can grow pumpkins on it, or even sweet corn, but maybe not all of you have space for a giant heap of manure. Now, I think for most of you, this is going to be your best, most practical option, which is to buy a pre-made soil conditioner. And most of them, they vary to an extent, but essentially are made up of really well composted bark and manure. And the advantage of buying them pre-made, if you like, is that they're sterile in the sense that there won't be any weed seeds in them. So it's quite rich material that I'm going to demonstrate, to show you basically how to use it now on the border, which is by applying a layer to the surface. And before I put that mulch onto the ground, I'm just going to very lightly fork over the ground to sort of open it up a little, remove any weeds that are in the way, and then apply a layer of about 2 or 3 inches to the soil surface. Now, timing wise, you would do this in late autumn, early winter, or alternatively do it in the spring. And if you're feeling enthusiastic, you can do it in both times as well. So getting the most from your soil, improving the structure, improving the nutrients that are within it is not a quick fix. It is something you have to work at, and I hope this video has given you some ideas about how you can do that. And if you can embrace those things, you really will reap the rewards years down the line.